Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Saturday. Let's call it the 7th. I don't have my phone. Where's my phone? It's over there. It's on my left side. I'm holding my mic with my left hand, so I'd have to switch hands to check to get the actual date, but you guys. So let's call it the 7th of June. It may or may not be. This video will be up tomorrow on Sunday. Okay, so I thought the Elon Musk thing and the Trump thing had taken a little pause. I guess Trump says he doesn't want to talk to Elon because he's, a baby. But there's some interesting things. There, a couple reports came out last night. Let's start with this one here.
Ugly, rip-roaring feud that gives anything you've ever seen on reality TV a run for its money that is still ongoing between Elon Musk and Donald Trump is that proverbial crash scene that no one can look away from. Today, Donald Trump referred to Musk as, quote, the man who lost his mind in an interview with ABC's John Carl, adding that he's not talking to him. He's not going to call him first. He's, quote, not interested in talking to Elon Musk. And to keep the bad breakup parallel going, where you throw out all the stuff you ever got from your ex and all the T-shirts you ever borrowed from them, there's reporting now that Trump's considering giving away the Tesla he bought at a highly inappropriate event on the White House lawn 2 months ago that experts at the time described as a blatant violation of ethics rules, corruption playing out in public, they said. Senator Chris Murphy called it that at the time.
Okay, so him saying Elon lost his mind. Trump, doesn't want to negate the richest man in the world, giving him all this money and giving him all this love and endorsement, what people call love. That neither one is capable of such things, but all the support Elon Musk gave him. And the Doge thing, he doesn't want to shit all over that stuff. And so he's in a kind of bad position because he's got to explain Elon's behavior, and there's no way to do it. See, the thing with Trump is, if you ever watch The Apprentice, Trump would bring two people in the boardroom, and it's, come out basically by everybody who was there. That was, they all signed NDAs and shit like that. But, the people who are, there's been books written on this and all these things. And Trump, he was failing in business. And Mark Burnett, who was, who created The Survivor and some of these other reality shows, came in and, was looking for some billionaire to do this with. And there wasn't, a few people passed. And so Donald Trump jumped on jumped at it because he wasn't a real billionaire. He was just struggling, but he was, he had a brand and he had this famous brand and things. And so he would come in, and they went to his offices, and they were a mess. He had barely anybody working for him. There was no Trump Enterprises, and everything was just in shambles. It was just, it was not TV quality, and it wasn't some kind of thing that you could put on TV claiming this guy's a billionaire. So they built him these, the fake set where, they would have the boardroom. And Trump, he was barely involved in the show. But where he was involved at the end was he had to fire somebody. And he would often fire the wrong people because he was, so arbitrary. And then they have to re-edit everything. And because they'd have to make it look like the guy they fired had, the person he fired was, should be fired. But Trump would bring these two people in the boardroom, and they would get into these almost yelling matches. And the more insulting they were, the more Trump would give them points. Trump thought that, conflict resolution was about dominating the other person by being louder than them and being more insulting. You could see and it was drama, and people liked it. People liked to see people arguing. So it was good television. But that's what Trump would do. And then, of course, he started to get into it with Rosie O'Donnell over the years, people like that. And you could see, sloppy Steve Bannon, you come up with these derogatory nicknames and, very immature. And he thought, whoever made up more bullshit about the other person, because it didn't matter whether it was true or not. It was a matter whether, he'd say to the person, you're losing. one person would be calm and trying to be professional, and the other person would be like unhinged in a boardroom, and he would say, you're getting your ass kicked. He'd be basically saying to the one person who was being professional and being reserved and not, having some fucking etiquette and things. And you can see that Trump had this, and that's why he likes the WWE, even though he grew up in a rich family and in sort of an elite situation. He liked WWE type moronic stuff. Like he became a part of it. He was friends with the McNans and all these things. And he eventually he'd do that bullshit ketchup gate thing that was so WWE. And his relationship to speaking to people, the crowd, is very WWE. Like in the crowd, like he speaks to people who are like kind of stupid and like very remedial in their processing and comprehension and consciousness. Like that's how he speaks. He gets people right, with his WWE type performance, and it's worked really well for that group of people, the MAGA people. To get them riled up. Because it's like the same kind of shit talking that, like all the stuff, Crooked Hillary and all these things he's done. And so in that, he has all these relationships and they always go south. And then he shits on the other person he's built up for a long time. Like that's how all these relationships with Trump ends. So I knew this was going to happen with Elon. And Elon talks a lot of shit and he's, big ego person. So this was like doomed for this was inevitable, because the big part of this is Doge was never going to be successful, because the government, the corrupt government, and the government that's the government does a lot of things, but there's a lot of dead weight, and getting rid of that dead weight is next to impossible. And I don't know how sincere either one of them was about doing it. But I knew they'd go about the wrong fucking way, and they piss people off. Just like when Trump came in, and he criticized the spy stuff, the CIA, FBI, the intelligence community, and right off the bat, so he became president. And remember, Chuck Schumer's like, "Oh, they have 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you." I have that clip, somewhere. I'm not going to show you. I showed it a bunch of times. But then they turned on him. And then Trump immediately had problems with them. And they didn't fuck with them ever again. Because they have information on you, and they just fucking, they were already doing a bunch of shit that they don't want to stop doing, because they have a new president, right? So the president doesn't even have access to a lot of the military shit and the intelligence community shit, because it can't change every 4 years. The president could come in and say, "I'll stop doing all these things you've been working on for 30 years. And so they're like, fuck that. We're not, they've excluded the president, right? And they have ways of controlling the president and not cooperating or whatever. And so Trump already kind of knew how government worked that way, that there's things you couldn't fuck with. And Elon Musk, he sent him out there to go after all this money, this, people scamming or whatever. And even if he was successful, it isn't fucking trillions. It isn't trillions of dollars of scams and waste. I mean, $1 billion is a shit ton of money. It's $1,000 million. So if there's $20 billion of scams, that's, or even $100 billion, that's like a lot. But, of government waste. But, to go after the real looting, they'd have to go after like the wars that have happened and the stuff where they really launder money through the Ukraine and things like that, and Israel and all these other places. And so that's trillion. To get into trillion stuff, you're going against people who kill you. For you have your trillionaires. People are, if they're laundering trillions of dollars of money through these scams, they're and there's a lot of governmental people involved, and everyone's got their hands out, and so there's no way to really get rid of all the government waste and corruption, right? And Elon Musk was screwed trying to do that, and so.
But beyond the schoolyard taunts and the very public, very nasty feuding between the two men. The spectacle, I likened it yesterday to two tarantulas in a bowl.
Okay, why would these people put two tarantulas in a bowl? There's those fish. I think they're. I don't know if it's a derogatory term. Siamese fighting fish. They're betas. I think they're called betas, and they are very beautiful fish. But you can only have one of them. The males are, the males are more beautiful than the female, and they'll fight to death if you put them in the same fish tank. But there's territorial fish. I had some of those African cichlids, and they're they're very fighty and territorial. But tarantulas, I don't know. Do tarantulas fight each other? It's a weird thing.
The reason we care and the reason we're covering it for a second day is, one, Trump doesn't want us to, and two, there are real stakes for the American people and how this ends.
So that's your reason for covering it. Trump doesn't want you to, and so of course you're going to cover it. Like, this is fucking great coverage. It's great fucking. I mean, it's a shit show. I mean, everyone's going to cover this because it's just like
The stakes speak to the enormous power Elon Musk inappropriately accumulated / purchased. Take, for example, Musk's threat to decommission SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft, which he later retracted after somebody on his platform asked him to on X. Politico reports this, quote, Musk's threat would deprive the U.S. of its only assured way of supplying the International Space Station and bringing on and off astronauts. If executed, NASA would instead have to rely on Russia to bring supplies and astronauts to the station. Imagine that, Elon Musk or Russia. Not clear what Trump would choose, right? At least not.
So this is like, Elon Musk lost $34 billion in one day. And Trump loses a lot of credibility and whatever's going on with that. I mean, everything that they try to do now it looks like a joke, right? So, Elon Musk is talking about insolvency and bankruptcy. And that's now those words are being thrown around and people are paying attention to the debt. And when you start looking at the debt, you're like, oh, we're fucked. I just did that whole thing with the AI, and, the AI said, well, we'll just muddle through. You use the term muddle through a bunch of times. Was like the most likely outcome. And it's like, I can't see the bigger ramifications of when you fuck with people's lifestyle and you take their Social Security and things like that, right? And so, this is where the scam becomes you realize you've been fucked, and you're going to want to blame somebody. Whether it's the government, whether it's, all these people have lied to you, the media. I was discussing this with the Google AI bot. It admitted that it's all based in perception, which is what I said. Everything's based in perception. So it's how much people can take before they lose faith in the dollar and panic and whatever. And then the economy just goes because people are like, money's worthless or whatever. It's just whatever happens, how long that takes and what that looks like. Like, how much of your lifestyle can they take before you do something, right? So this is going on right now with Google and YouTube, where they're just running too many ads. So somebody sent me a video of this girl who's totally not a truther. She was, at the end of her thing, she was like a 30-minute video. But I found it interesting because it was everything that I'm experiencing as a truther. But, truthers are always the guinea pigs for such things. How badly they can treat you as creators. And, now maybe it's to do with AI, whatever their reasoning is. They're running way too many ads. So your audience is getting pissed off by the amount of ads. You have to turn off the mid-roll ads for every video instead of doing it. A lot of what I do is I have these upload defaults, like all my, stuff that's in the box there, all my links. That's, unless I add something to the upload default, when I'm uploading the video, I can add things to it. But there's some things it brings in automatically. And it used to be that you could set the ad thing and upload defaults, and now you can't. So you have to do it for each video. And you can turn off mid-roll ads, which would be all the ads in the middle. People have found ways to get around the ads, for longer videos. And so for me, it's like I'm making so little money from YouTube. I could turn off the mid-roll ads and then, ask for more donations or whatever, per video, which is something I have to consider. But either way, my view count's down, not just because of that, but because of, I don't even know how much it's the ads, but this is happening to everybody. And so the girl was like, again, mainstream person, why are people going to create when they're not getting compensated? Like YouTube is paying less money. And so they're wanting to get rid of creators. They're finding new ways to deprive you of your audience, and they're running way too many ads, and at Google as well. And she was like saying they're just being greedy, but they're doing it knowing what the outcome is, and especially now with AI where they know what's going to happen. And so why are they doing that? Why are they pushing you in this way? Like, how long will you keep on making content when you're not getting compensated as much as you used to, right? And it's, they when they do these types of things, they're studying how much people can take, how much unfairness, how much they can take away from you, right? And so, this is where we're at as a country, where we're at in terms of they almost never would talk about the debt. They would go call it the debt, right? But they weren't using words like insolvency or bankruptcy or, any of the things that Elon Musk was saying. And Doge brought that to everyone's attention, and now Doge has failed. And, there's that guy Smear Kanish was from MSNBC or CNN. He's a weekend guy. He's on Saturdays. And he said, he isn't like Musk or Trump, but he said at least somebody tried something. At least they were trying to do something, and, whatever, the corruption was, but they can't. And it's just because the economy's fucked, right? Our budget's $8 trillion, including $1 trillion of interest, and our income's $5 trillion. And there's no way to bring that budget down to $5 trillion, just to make it so there's no new debt. And then there's $1 trillion of interest. So, it's fucked. Like, there's no economic solution other than hyperinflation or whatever. And, and then, that's like economic collapse, right? If you're paying 5 times for whatever, if you're paying $20 for a loaf of bread, like your grocery bill will be like $10,000, right? You go to the grocery store, it costs you, thousands of dollars for normal, like what used to cost you a couple of hundred. And so, this is where we're at as a country.
It's not to me. The threat was in response to Trump, who attacked Musk by saying, I'm going to end all your federal contracts for all of Musk's companies. Something that, again, ethically and normally might be the right thing to do, but because he's so embedded, would cause utter chaos for the U.S. military if it's done in the spirit and context and the moment of this fight. Washington Post reports this, quote, over the years, SpaceX has become a vital contractor, launching sensitive national security payloads such as satellites that provide missile warning, battlefield communication, and guide munitions to precise targets. NPR reports this, quote, SpaceX's Starlink satellite network is a player in a multi-billion-dollar federal effort to expand internet access to underserved parts of the country. Trump is fine with all that commingling of his donor and the United States federal government and Musk's businesses, all those contracts.
These are contracts Musk had already. For Trump to say he's going to get petty and try to go after Elon that way, like it's total abuse of power. And imagine if he's going to go do that to Elon, who has all the money and resources, and what he could do to anybody who criticizes him. This is the only reason Trump's doing this is that Elon Musk is, now saying shit about his bullshit bill that's going to obviously launder some more money and take some more money from the American people. A bill that Trump probably didn't even read, and they just his handlers are pushing it through as some big, beautiful bill, some bullshit thing. And, again, people are saying this is performative, and there's always a chance that that's the truth, that there's a distraction. But I don't see it as that, because I don't think Trump is being communicated like they work him without telling him he's part of a script, right? Like I don't think they like he knows he's acting and faking to the American people, but what he does and how he's doing everything is being managed and handled in ways that he's not aware of.
Which NASA, the Pentagon, millions of actual human beings depend on, until Musk went there, attacked his big, not so beautiful bill, and invoked his presence in the Epstein files, something for which there is no publicly known evidence. The
Yeah. Other than the fact that he said these things about him.
Work puts it like this, quote, "The disquieting reality continues to hang in the air. Major parts of our government rely on a return to goodwill between two of the most arrogant and emotionally unbalanced men alive. In what world is that not a massive national security risk?" Joining our conversation is Tyler Pager. He's a White House correspondent for the New York Times. He's co-author of the soon-to-be-released book, 2024. Matt Dowd is still here as well. Tyler, where are we? And, like sands through the hourglass. You're too young to even know what that is, Days of Our Lives soap opera. But where are we in this very public fight between Elon Musk and Donald Trump?
Has Days of Our Lives been canceled? Do they no longer have that? Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. Do they even have soap operas anymore? Like they have game shows. Anyway.
Trump.
Yeah, I think we're just waiting to see what the next step might be. We saw Elon Musk, as you...
Okay, so this is just some bullshit. There's two other things here.
They say that breaking up is hard to do. It's been just over 24 hours since the President Trump-Elon Musk friendship.
And so they're both going with this idea that it's a breakup. Somewhere AOC said the girls are fighting, right? Which, for a liberal person, who's all about feminism, saying that, I think I can find that, but I should find that because, let me go find that later. Let's go to this thing here.
An alliance disintegrated into a ball of dust. And now the two men appear to be going through different stages of grief for President Trump. The stage seems to be acceptance. Today he told CNN's Dana Bash in a phone call, quote, "I'm not even thinking about Elon. He's got a problem. The poor guy's got a problem."
He just went crazy. He was bouncing up and down on the stage like a frickin' gibbering baboon and jumping up and down with his chainsaw and running around on the stage weird and, all that stuff he was doing at Trump rallies and all that enthusiasm and all that stuff. Like that, and now this is how it ends. This is how it always ends with Trump.
Quote, and indeed, so far at least, we have not seen another Trump remark or post on social media about Elon Musk. When Dana asked Trump, when Dana asked Trump about reports that he was going to have a phone call with Elon Musk, Trump said, quote, "No, I won't be speaking to him for a while, I guess, but I wish him well," unquote. Dana said the president did not sound angry. He sounded resigned. And here's another breakup hallmark. An official tells CNN that the president plans to get rid of that red Tesla that he purchased from Elon Musk in March.
It's so poorly parked, such a dick fucking move, right?
He's going to sell it or maybe even give it away. As for Elon Musk, figuring out where he's at in the process of grief, well, that seems more complicated. Last night, he appeared to be in the bargaining stage. He replied to a random user on his X or Twitter platform who said, "This is a shame, this back and forth. You are both better than this. Cool off and take a step back for a couple days." To which Musk said, "Good advice. Okay, we won't decommission Dragon."
That's not a way to run a business, right? Or a country. This is the pettiness and the volatility. You get guys like this. I mean, Trump at least is less Trump during this thing. But, this is where you could have World War III. You can't have people, you can't have somebody as a president threaten these things as a CEO, where you're talking about people's jobs and livelihoods and, the American military not having what it needs because of these contracts with Musk and his companies. It's you can't have that, right? Like, you can't have him getting petty and doing it out in public. But everything's up for grabs now.
That's a reference to his SpaceX Dragon spacecraft that yesterday Musk threatened to take away after Trump threatened to end Musk's lucrative government contracts. Let's go now to CNN's political director and Washington bureau chief, David Chalian. Let's take a step back here, David.
See, Trump's saying we should cancel his government contracts. He didn't ask anybody. What would that mean? What would that involve? Can I do that? Like, he just said it on fucking Twitter. Like, oh, maybe I'll do that. You know, trying to bully Elon to stop fucking talking shit about him. And that, you know, wasn't going to work. Like, Trump doesn't fucking understand. You know, I mean, this is somebody with real money and real, like he said, he owns fucking Twitter. Like, this guy's got, you know. And so, and like Elon Musk doesn't care. He obviously doesn't give a shit about the money because he's showed over and over again he doesn't give a shit about the money. Like, he took a huge hit when he bought Twitter. He took a huge hit when he backed Trump, right? You know, whatever that stuff is. So, I mean, it's just like, you can't be this immature and run a company or be president, right? You just can't.
The richest man in the world is now claiming it was only with his help, his hundreds of millions of dollars, that Trump was able to win last November. That's a shocking thing for him to say. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but it certainly doesn't say anything good about,
you know, but you could kind of speculate that it's possibly true. Like, there's a lot of things that, you know, I mean, if Elon Musk didn't help him out, we don't know if Kamala ever could have got enough. I mean, you know, who's to say, you know, but it's probably true, right? Definitely didn't hurt him like it is now. Totally, like Elon Musk is hurting Trump now after all the shits that's gone down. Anyways, let's go to this AOC thing. So this is the end of the report with this chick right here, Chris Hayes. We're going to go back to the beginning. There seems to be some good stuff to see here. You know, just tabloid kind of shit. This is like getting all tabloid. But this happened.
Any quick reaction on what's going on with Elon Musk and President Trump on Twitter right now?
Oh, man, the girls are fighting, aren't they?
See, for her to say that, it's when you call men girls or women, like if you say a man, hey, you guys are being a couple of bitches, right? Crazy chicks. It's a derogatory towards women, right? Like, it's, you know, insulting to the men, right? She's like insulting the girls are fighting. It's insult. Like, if you're a feminist, you're, you know, you're making less than women. Like, it's you're making women like, oh, they're being like a couple of women. They're being like a couple of girls. You know, you're saying like men are somehow better than that, right? And so,
You know, I would say that this was something that was a long time coming.
okay, so she wants to be president and may very well be.
New York, I'm Chris Hayes. MAGA world is still reeling from the ongoing breakup between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Notably, some of their biggest fans are just struggling to accept that this is really the end.
I think it's incredibly unfortunate. You and I are both good friends with President Trump, and we're both good friends with Elon Musk. They're both extraordinary men. I hope that both of them come back together, because when the two of them are working together, we'll get a lot more done for America than when they're at cross purposes.
I think it is important for us to pray, you know, for peace and the
Pray for peace.
Unification of these two guys.
It's a fucking guy who's a representative in Arizona. Pray for peace. Can we pray for peace between Elon and Trump?
Because as Bill Ackman said, and you've said yourself, the country's in a lot better spot when those two are united.
Yeah, sure it is.
For his part, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa invoked his wife's desire to see the two men reconcile. Quote, I just heard Barbara Grassley say this disagreement and arguments between Musk and Trump must end. I know she loves both Musk and President Trump. I'd advise you to follow her advice.
Exactly. Well, Barbara Grassley says, wants, Barbara Grassley gets.
And Republican Senator Mike Lee of Utah has been openly pleading with both men to end their feud, tweeting, quote, who else really wants Elon Musk and real Donald Trump to reconcile?
Not me. I'm kind of digging it. This is kind of like, this is one of the highlights. It's like a holiday for me. It's like, I mean, this is, kind of one of my big things. I hope this goes on, a shit show. I think they've calmed down. I'll check out Elon's Twitter later, but I think this is, as of Saturday, they've had some truce or whatever.
Repost if you agree the world is a better place with the Trump-Musk bromance fully intact. Even shared this.
The bromance, look at him.
Photoshopped image, which is
Bilbo Baggins nailed it.
It's pretty funny of Trump and Musk.
Because Musk is the chick in this one.
Musk is a married couple with the caption, quote, "I never got over my parents' divorce." Now, unfortunately for the senator, it doesn't seem like reconciliation is in the cards, at least not today, not right now. And the MAGA world is slowly coming to terms with the fact that they're going to need to pick sides. In fact, Musk is forcing the question after reviewing the results of a very unscientific poll on his own social media platform. The billionaire is now calling for a third party following his split from the Republicans. Quote, "The people have spoken. A new political party is needed in America to represent the 80% in the middle. And exactly 80% of people agree, smiley emoji, this is fate." God, he's just got a knack for posting, doesn't he? Adding it will be called the America Party.
Exactly, boom. That's what it just rolls off your tongue. The America problem, like red, white, and blue land can be its headquarters.
Not sure how many takers Musk is going to get on that offer, though. Most of his old Republican allies seem to be siding with the sitting president of the United States, including Trump's buddies on the Fox and Friends curvy couch.
The Epstein file thing was way over the top and just crazy to say that Trump was in the Epstein files. I mean, what are you doing? Sometimes when people get drunk, they do crazy things, but this is a total escalation.
We're going to have more to say about the Epstein part of this. In fact, a lot more later in the show. But I guess, welcome to...
Yeah, there was a piece. We can go to that.
The resistance, Fox and Friends, kind of. I mean, that kind of recklessness on display by Elon Musk. Yes.
More Fox and Friends here. Let's go to that.
But he's measured, wants to be here, appreciate what he did. EV mandate was eliminated. He's not happy about it. He says foundationally he doesn't like the bill. You know what? The bill might actually get better because of Musk, and I think we're working towards that right now. With Elon Musk, and I know it sounds crazy, he just doesn't understand politics. He has no idea about compromise.
That measured response is mostly just Trump venting to TV journalists about Musk over the phone instead of posting about him in all caps on social media. Today, Trump told ABC News Musk, quote, lost his mind. He told Fox News Elon's totally lost it. He told CNN the poor guy's got a problem. But lest you think Trump isn't acting restrained, he also told CBS News he's not focused on Musk. And despite Trump's apparent willingness
Yeah, of course he's not, because he doesn't get triggered by such things.
to speak to any journalist with a cell phone, his own Vice President, J.D. Vance, is blaming those same journalists for reporting the things Trump tells him on the record. Quote, "There are many lies the corporate media tells about President Trump. One of the most glaring is that he's impulsive or short-tempered. Anyone who has seen him operate under pressure knows that's ridiculous."
That's the kind of shit they're saying about Joe Biden. When they start lying to you about what the guy's like, covering up for his, like, we all know he's short-tempered and impulsive. Like, fucking, if you don't know he's impulsive and short-tempered, I mean, he tweets in the middle of the fucking night, right? And he hasn't learned. Like, he was president for 4 years, and then he was an ex-president for 4 years, so that's 8 years. And he's still doing it. And he's got his own place to tweet now. He's got his own platform. So that in the middle of the night, he can get upset and tweet something. And nobody stopped him from doing this. I've always loved it, because it's very not presidential. It's what makes Trump's presidency entertaining. It's him tweeting when he's angry, like drunk dialing. And he does these things when he's obviously upset. But it shows you he's, like, not fit to lead, but it doesn't matter because the presidency isn't real anyway.
Yeah, totally. Whatever you say, it's probably worth keeping in mind that when Trump did post about the feud on social media, when was it? Yesterday. It was to threaten to end billions of dollars in federal contracts the U.S. government has with Musk. So I guess he can now acknowledge that those contracts are wasteful and they were pork and cronyism and they only existed because Musk was his buddy, or they're not and he's going to get rid of them purely out of vengeance. That's restraint, right?
Yeah, that's either way, that's horrible. That's what I was saying about both those things. Either they're bullshit in the first place, or you're just being a petty little bitch and you're going to hurt people, people that work for Musk and his companies, and more importantly, American governmental programs, just because you're being a little bitch about it, right? And threatening things, because this is how Trump negotiates. He tries to bully people. I mean, the whole thing is just hilarious.
Despite Trump's so-called measured response, his feud is still causing problems across MAGA world. This is really amazing. Check this out. It has gotten so bad that the FBI Director Kash Patel, who of course had a big interview with Joe Rogan, had his interview interrupted with the breaking news.
This is going to come up because it's been going on since we've been recording here. Elon and Trump seem to be in a bit of a spat, Joe. You want to check the tweet that Elon just put out a little bit ago?
Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day. Jesus Christ.
I'm not
That's a great moment.
participating in any of that conversation
What is
between
he?
Elon
Have a
and Trump.
nice day, DJT. Someone should take his phone away. Does he know that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files? Or does he have access to the Epstein files?
I don't know how he would, but I'm just staying out of the Trump-Elon thing.
Oh, the FBI director is staying out of the Trump-Elon thing? He's staying out of an accusation.
He's staying out of it. I'm staying out of it.
That
This is actually a great piece. I was going to watch a little bit of it.
Donald Trump is in a secret file linking him to Jeffrey Epstein that the FBI has possession of. On the other hand, when Joe Rogan, of all people, thinks you got off the deep end and someone should take away your phone, it's probably time to log off for a little while. But Musk's prolonged crash out is still going on. He's been something on a tear. He's been tweeting slurs at Trump's informal advisor, Steve Bannon, who's been a very vocal Musk critic, who wants the world's richest man deported.
I do believe, I strongly believe that he's here illegally, that he lied on all his applications and visas, and that if that's the case, he has to be deported immediately. You cannot deport 13 million people, particularly many people from the third world, and let some billionaire get away with that.
This is Sloppy Steve. Remember when Bannon and Trump went at it? Bannon was Trump's insider, and Bannon was the one that convinced Trump to go on Alex Jones right before the election in 2016 and go after truthers. Of course, Trump was a fake, and Alex Jones is fake, all that shit. But, that was him, and he steered Trump in the right direction, and he helped Trump get elected, and then they got into it, and he called him Sloppy Steve, which was apparently like some derogatory thing that was like on a Urban Dictionary. Sloppy Steve was already a thing, and Trump started calling it so. This is Sloppy Steve, and now they're buds again, kind of. The whole thing's fucked, right? Let's get to the Jeffrey Epstein thing here. Okay, so let's move over to the coverage of the Jeffrey Epstein thing. There's the video with Trump and Jeffrey Epstein joking around. I think they're going to show that, at least pictures of it, which we know they had a relationship. And, there was a time where I did just picture videos. I had a Microsoft program that made Movie Maker, I think it was called, and I would just put images together, and I wouldn't put in video clips, and eventually I moved towards Adobe products and things. So, apparently you can use AI now to do all the video stuff, and I could just do the audio, which would save me a lot of time. But anyways, I could do the audio and then tell AI to create a video, which will help me immensely. Although I like this kind of whatever. But I used to have this. I found this. This was back when I was doing a lot of Illuminati sacrifice. In fact, this picture is from a folder entitled Ellen, Ellen, and Celebrity Sacrifice. And somehow this Jeffrey Epstein made it into the Ellen folder. So when I ever have to look for these pictures. And I found this this font called Bloodthirsty. I used to use this all the time. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. Trump booms from a speakerphone. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. Of course, Trump said all that shit about his daughter. I'm not going to show you those clips, but he's creepy this way, right? Trump managed to involve himself in 2 skeevy sex scandals. You know, he's just he's a creep, and you know there was rumors there was that one guy who worked for Trump on The Apprentice, and also he worked for him in his capacity as Miss Teen USA and the U.S. Miss USA, and Trump used to inspect the girls, and he's just said creepy things, which the Trumpers have ignored, and they've ignored his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But it's there. He had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. They were connected in various ways. And I'm sure he's, in some extent, in the Epstein files because of this, right? So let's get to the report here.
In his online fight with Donald Trump yesterday, Elon Musk's idea of dropping a really big bomb was to reveal that Trump was in the Epstein files. But you knew that, right? I mean, one of the craziest things about the pro-MAGA right and their longtime obsession with the Jeffrey Epstein story is how they took a story that is about Donald Trump and Trump's administration and somehow twisted it to be a story about all of their political enemies. It's a crazy ideological contortion that got created around Epstein. This man, who was, as you see there, videotaped, hanging out and leering at women with Donald Trump. A man who, according to Trump in a 2002 interview,
there he's doing this. I didn't watch this, but he's reading the same thing here. The same quote that I just read. We can bypass that.
Under the aegis of William Barr's Department of Justice. And yet Epstein's reported sex trafficking was seized on.
Yeah, remember he committed suicide when Trump was president, right? So, I mean, all of those things. And, Trump didn't say shit about it. In fact, it was a Miami Herald reporter that reopened up the Jeffrey Epstein stuff because he got, federally indicted. Jeffrey Epstein did. And it was like a day prison. Like he was going home at night, or he was out during the day, or it was a night prison, totally federal prison, barely anything. And most of it was probation. And, these young girls, I mean, so many of them were there in Florida that were a part of this thing. And they all started talking to this Miami reporter who went after and reopened up the story. And Trump didn't do anything to encourage it. I mean, this is how fucked the MAGA people are. They're like completely, they won't hear the fucking truth about Trump. You guys know from, the comment section, I barely get MAGA people anymore. But I mean, it's the opposite of being a truther. Like, it's the opposite about being anti-pedo or anti-Jeffrey Epstein and all these things. Trump had a relationship with this guy just as much as Clinton did, even more so. Clinton isn't on record saying the things that Trump said. And he wasn't, you don't see Clinton and him hanging out, right? So, I mean, Trump said he was a great guy, terrific. And so, and then they say, well, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, like whatever that was years after the damage was done, and it wasn't because of the stuff that you're saying it is. It's just made up bullshit so you can feel good about your Trump, backing of Trump.
By the right wing, spun into a conspiracy theory about the perfidy of liberal politicians like Hillary Clinton and global elites like Bill Gates. Now, it took off partly because Epstein really did have this insane range of contacts with rich and influential people. But spinning Epstein's crimes into a vast left-wing conspiracy always required selective memories and
Yeah, like it's not a left-wing or right-wing, it's all these people. He gave money to all these people, hung out with him, Woody Allen, all these people. I mean, all these people, they're intertwined, right? The left and the right. These are all people that are in one club of the left-right paradigm, which none of you guys will acknowledge. And so whatever this thing is, it's an elite thing, right? It's something that some members of the elite either engage in, sexual deprivation, sexual perversion, or they know what goes on and they won't say anything about it. Right? This has been, there's a George W. Bush scandal that was, I can't remember the name of it. It's just, it's there for me. But, involves Boys Town in Nebraska. And they were taking these kids from Boys Town in Nebraska, and they were ending up in Washington, D.C., being prostituted to all these rich and powerful people. And then there was a guy, this guy, Jeff Gannon. There's other things called the Franklin scandal. I had to go look them up. The Franklin scandal was all these elite people in Washington, D.C., lobbyists and politicians. And they were taking these kids from Boys Town in Nebraska. You can look that up. And then there was Jeff Gannon. Jeff Gannon was this buff reporter that was asking George W. Bush very friendly questions, like completely wording them in a way that was a part of the Republican agenda. Like he was a plant, and he wasn't really a journalist, but he made it into the White House briefing room, and George W. Bush was told to ask him to call on him. But it turns out that Jeff Gannon also was a male prostitute, like for men mostly. And he had some kind of beefcake website. And then it turned out that there was this kid that they were looking for on one of those, America Most Wanted, or that, that guy who had that show where he was looking for missing children, that fake like Inside Edition show. And there was this one particular story about this kid that disappeared. And it was one of the fundamental stories. And the kid had ended up growing up to this guy and becoming this guy, Jeff Gannon. And there's a whole thing you can look up about that. And he was all involved in male prostitute abuse, abducting children shit. He ended up in Washington, D.C., working for Bush as a shill reporter. And so there's always these things. There's always weird stuff. There was that guy who was a gay senator from, like, New Hampshire, and he got caught with underage boys. I mean, there's all these things, right? Like an intern or something. And so there are these stories that are very prevalent about debauchery, like sexual abuse and human trafficking, that are always connected to the elite now with Puff Daddy and, the Open Secret movie by Amy Berg, a documentary about Hollywood. There's a stuff that exists in these elite people. They're into this kind of stuff. And if they're not into it, they know what's going on. Like it's there at parties and the rest of this stuff, right? And so, it also tells you that becoming rich and famous, that's the club you enter into. Those are the people you have to deal with. If it isn't Jeffrey Epstein, it's Harvey Weinstein, it's, Woody Allen, it's, any of these people, right? That guy, Roman Polanski. I mean, it's just all these things are there for everybody to see. Like that's what you're trying. That's what the American dream ends up being. Donald Trump and these people, and they're all part of this creepiness. Like they get money and power, and they end up, it's just not that. They get into all this stuff that's just hedonistic and creepy, and they lose any sense of their own humanity and their own ability to. Master Chargy, the third master of the Sajmark system, said that pain and suffering help keep your personality intact. The things that you have to struggle with. And if you have too much pleasure, you don't have like the regular kind of stress that people who are, they have financial issues and whatever's going on, things at work and family stuff. But if you just have, constant pleasure, like these people who make billions of dollars and then everybody kisses their ass and they have some stresses, but they're mostly just, especially the kids who grow up wealthy and don't have a job or anything. They're just all set. They just inherit this money. And they don't have to go through the pressure of making it and the pressure of keeping it, right? And their personalities become diffuse because if you don't have, it's like a pressure cooker. It keeps you bound together. Having goals, having things to work for, having things to overcome, right? No pain, no gain. And these people just have indulging all the time and these lavish pleasure-based, it's like being on vacation all the time. You know, I experienced that. I went to the Virgin Islands and lived there for a while. You know, or even when I was in Florida. You know, it's the same day every day. The weather is. And, you know, it's nice having the seasons, even though the winter sucks or whatever the issues are. You know, having the complete seasons is better than having, like, just tropical paradise every day. People who live in these islands and these things, they party and, you know, it's easy. It's hard to get sick there. You know, it's just a better climate and all these things. And just the beauty of the ocean and whatever. But you need pain and suffering. You can't be on vacation for your whole life, right? And so that's what happens to these motherfuckers, all of them.
Crazy contortions. So much so that when Donald Trump's Department of Justice hyped up its dump of documents on the Epstein case in February, remember that? Even inviting some far-right influencers to the White House to pick up the files in great big binders before anyone else got it. Those influencers were disappointed and angered to find nothing new. Certainly no evidence to back up their outlandish theories about who Epstein consorted with and how he died. And suddenly, the same Trump officials who had once trafficked in Epstein conspiracy theories were flailing to convince the MAGA faithful that the conspiracies were wrong all along.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it. Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their...
So it's hilarious that look at this beady-eyed motherfucker. They have a right to believe in bullshit lies. But it's hilarious him and Joe Rogan were on together when this thing came in.
Opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
Look at these two motherfuckers. This guy's a piece of shit, too.
Thank you.
What?
So there's something so perfect about the way Musk dropped his supposed...
Wait, what did that other guy say? Did he say they killed him?
When you see one, and that's what that was.
Thank you.
They killed him?
So there's something so perfect about the way Musk dropped his supposed Epstein bomb on Trump yesterday. And it drove the online MAGAs crazy. And it dropped just as Trump's FBI director...
You know, and this makes Musk look like a piece of shit. Because why didn't you say anything until now? You must have known this for a while, and you were still backing that motherfucker, right? And so either you're lying about the guy, slandering him, or you know something, and you wouldn't say it when you were kissing his ass and working for Doge.
Patel, you just saw there, was sitting down for another interview with...
Yeah, we already saw that, but let's watch this again.
Conspiracy-minded podcaster Joe Rogan, who's talked a lot about Epstein, which led Patel venting about how he can't please the tinfoil hat crowd.
The problem is there's been like 15 years of people coming in and creating fictions about this that doesn't exist. Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? If there was a video of some guy or gal committing felonies on an island, and I'm in charge.
Is he fucking smoking pot over here with the director of the FBI? Is Joe Rogan smoking pot with the director of FBI? Yeah.
Don't you think you'd see it?
If you have access to it.
If I have it. Period.
Right.
If I have it. If I have it.
I gotta say, the vape cloud there.
A vape cloud.
There is just... We don't have any videos. It's true. You know what we do have, though? Over a decade of shoe leather reporting and digging by real journalists of the hated mainstream media. Folks like Julie Brown, the Miami Herald. Thanks to those people who did the reporting, we know that Donald Trump is in the Epstein court files and in Epstein's address book. We also know about a sweetheart plea deal that Epstein got in 2008. A deal that let him serve just 13 months in jail and preempted a deeper probe into his victims and co-conspirators.
You know, the other thing is they were together in West Palm Beach. Donald Trump's favorite place is, you know, Mar-a-Lago's in West Palm Beach. And Epstein was over there. That's where all this shit started. You know, it's a Florida thing. And so, you know, I mean, it's just all of it. Like they all suck. They're all depraved fucking people. That's what happens when you have money and power. And if you're, or this is what I was talking about, bringing people down or bringing people up. Like if you're around saints, you're going to be pulled up to a higher level of consciousness. Your best part of you is going to come out. That's the whole theory. You know, that's the whole practice of the Sajmark system, is that you become elevated and then you interact with other people and help elevate them. You're connected to people that are they're higher, farther along on their spiritual journey than you are. And, this is an upward movement. But if you hang around criminals, you're going to become a criminal. You hang around depraved people, you become a depraved person. And so, and it takes a highly disciplined person to go in to the scum of the earth and bring them up. Like, that's why you can't really do it. That there has to be, like, the highest developed people just have to have people who are aspiring to be better, right? You don't go out to the criminals and the people that are the lowest level and try to pull them up. They have to be pulled up by other people that are closer to where they are, right? Because it's just, it's too much to do that. But the most important thing is that you're around people who are uplift you in some way, either by knowledge or by any of these other things. And there's just a little layers of depravity with all these motherfuckers here. Okay, I'm in the editing process. I just want to add this here. And I've talked about this forever. I came across a bunch of bullshit, the QBs, the QAnon morons, and then the Trumpers, they all became flat earthers, QBs, Trumpers, they all, most of them were connected in some way. And they were sharing shit that I knew wasn't true. And they would post comments, dopey fucking comments, on my videos, like I wasn't going far enough and, I wasn't saying the things. All these people, Isaac Cappy, and there's other people. There's some guy, he was like fighting for the vets in Arizona, and he discovered what he called a camp that was supposedly on Clinton land in Arizona. That was it was clearly a camp for homeless people. There's like a strap on the tree that you would use to hang up like a backpack or something, and they called it a rape strap, right? Like clearly they weren't holding kids captive there. And it turned out to be completely false. This guy was a guy who was an attention seeker. Like Isaac Cappy, there are these desperate people who wanted attention. And they knew the only way to get attention was to make up outlandish lies that just did a total disservice to the rest of us in the truth community. And they said things that I just knew weren't true, about Epstein, about Pizzagate, about all these things to get views. I mean, some of it was disinformation agents. Some of it was people who just, they thought they were justified in lying because it was bringing attention to something they knew was happening. And they made up a bunch of bullshit. They made up a list, a Jeffrey Epstein fly list that wasn't true, wasn't verifiable. All these things were made up. And they also said that there's videos and whatever else was there. And of course there wasn't. When you think about Prince Andrew, who was one of Jeffrey Epstein's clients or whatever he was to Jeffrey Epstein, that Jeffrey Epstein pimped out this girl to him and others, and this girl sued him and won $12 million and embarrassed the royal family. You think that motherfucker is going to go anywhere near a video camera when these guys are abusing girls? I mean, it was all reports of what the girl said they went through, and it was he said versus she said. They don't take videos unless they were going to blackmail somebody. But Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, whatever he was doing there in terms of the island, it was going to be discreet. These rich people do things behind closed doors. That's why that Alex Jones bullshit thing where that he snuck into Bohemian Grove. You don't sneak into Bohemian Grove. Ain't going to let you fucking in there, right? Like it's silly. You're not going to get video of these people. And especially now with deepfake, everything that you're going to see is going to be made up. And so these dopes, these Trumpers and these QBs believed all these fake claims about videos and these things and whatever was out there. And, we pretty much knew everything that was there to know because there was court documents where they released all the information that they had. And, this guy, Kash Patel, and the rest of these clowns, they said things like going after the deep state. And they said things about Jeffrey Epstein to make it sound like they were one of you, and they're not. They learned to lie to you, lie to truthers, the right-wing truthers. And so, they weren't going to out their own friends. Like, the other part is they're all a part of a club, and they all have information and stories to tell about other people. And once they start telling each other stories, then they get exposed. They're all either complicit or involved in this shitty, creepy behavior. They're a part of this club. That's why they're called the elite. And getting information on the elite only comes out when the elite want to burn one of their own, like they did to Bernie Madoff, when that person fucks up and crosses the line and does something that the rest of the elite don't like. Other than that, and even then, they don't give you the full details because their lives and your lives have to be separate. And so they don't want, too many people looking in at billionaires and these other people. They want to be above your consciousness, above your reach. And so now these guys who have lied to you, the Trumpers, forever, and Trump had a more substantial relationship with Jeffrey Epstein than anyone's willing to admit. And so they release this information. They're like, where's the rest of it? Just like with the JFK Jr. or the JFK assassination or the UFO stuff, right? I saw this thing on Donny O'Sullivan. Hopefully I'll do that tomorrow. I forgot to do it today. I'm going to look for it see if it's here. I can copy it on my phone if not. And he was at the UFO conference. And, it's just fucking stupid. Like, and they're pretending like it's outlandish to believe in UFOs when we've had, ancient cave art and stories and, traditional stories and things that there were extraterrestrials for years. And then it's only been recently they pretended that they don't exist. So all these things, right? So it's a bunch of people who took advantage of the dumb cubies who lied to you and said that they had evidence and they were going to release this evidence. And now they don't need your vote anymore or your support as much. They're like, hey, you guys are crazy, Yeah, we're releasing all that we have, and then all of a sudden they're no longer your friends and your buddies, and they don't no longer believe what you believe. And that's what it always is. And so all these truthers that fell for that bullshit that Trump is somehow going to bring truth. And, the only thing he's got left to fuck up is the RFK Jr. food and drug thing. That's coming. At some point he's gonna go, he'll get paid off by Pfizer or whatever it is, and he'll turn on RFK Jr. because that's what Trump does. He uses you until you're no longer, until you've exhausted all your ability to serve him, and then he throws you under the bus. All right, let's get back to it here. Okay. This is just one more thing about Trump and Elon. Now I want to move on to that dude who got deported to El Salvador. That's back in the news. And then a little bit more on AI. Kind of important stuff on AI. Everything about AI is really kind of the story now. That's the real story, which we'll get into in a moment. Well, so what I want to say about AI, my wife and I were talking about this, and what I'm understanding about it is it's not even what it's going to become. It's what it already does now, and we don't know how to utilize it yet, right? It isn't like it's just the advancements it's going to make. It's just ways that people can now utilize it to take people's jobs away or to fill, roles that humans used to play. Or it's in teaching, and I'll show you some stuff about teaching and, tutoring and all these different things that, just my experience with it, you can see it's so much better than regular search engines and Siri and all these things they had before. It's not even on, you can't even, it's multi-levels beyond anything we've had before. And so it's just that we haven't figured out how to utilize it yet. We haven't figured out all the way. It's not going to tell us what it can do. It's not going to just go start taking people's jobs. It's CEOs and people figuring out, people in these industries figuring out how to utilize AI that already exists and is going to be even better in the future. And as it starts to work in these industries, and then it starts growing in its knowledge base and understanding these roles, like I said, you're going to be training your own replacements. So like that exists even now. And then in 5 years, the advancement, they're saying that these things are going to advance. It's advancing exponentially. So that's coming in a second here.
Mr. President, you gave Elon Musk when he left the White House symbolically to the White House, to the administration at large. I think that's what. Yeah. Would you like him to give that back?
No, I don't take things back. No.
What about the Tesla?
I gave him a key. He tried very hard. The Tesla, I haven't done.
What's your reflection on his work then, as at this point for the administration? How do you think his Doge did, given the savings that?
Oh, I think it helped us a lot. I think it helped our thinking, and it's not finished at all. We're basically taking it over. We're doing a job. Many of those people remained with us, and they're going to remain with us. They're very good. It's terrific. We saved, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, so that's nothing because you just added $2 trillion with your big beautiful bill. Fish boy. But he said he's not going to take the gold key back. He earned it.
It's terrific. And it's going further. I mean, I'd give you the answer actually at the end of 2 years because a lot of it is out into the future. But it was a big saving and a good mindset.
And what are you going to do about the Tesla? Are you going to keep it or are you going to...
I haven't thought about it.
Do you have any plans to contact...
I mean, I hope he does well with Tesla.
Do you have any plans to speak with Mr. Musk? This was one of your closest advisors.
Yeah,
for
no, I don't
months.
have any plans. Somebody made a mistake. A lot of reporters have been calling me. I didn't call it a reporter. A lot of reporters, they asked me the same question. No, I don't. I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah, he's trying to take the high road and whatever because they probably say this is like going to destroy your presidency. This is going to hurt you, and the only thing you got left is your MAGA base, and you're going to lose them. All of those things. See, Trump reverses himself all the time. See, the reason Elon Musk, if whatever this is, any of these stories are legitimate, but the reason people get pissed off at Trump is that Trump comes in as like, wow, he's really into something initially. Like he did this with Dianne Feinstein, where she had a ghoulgasm over gun control. And then another time under asset forfeiture. Both things that are he took the opposite position than his right-wing supporters. And he made it sound like he was totally into it, which he does with everybody, whether it be RFK Jr. He did that with RFK Jr., and then Pfizer gave him $1 million and he dropped the RFK Jr. stuff. So Trump, he makes it sound like he's really into what you're presenting, and maybe he is for that moment. But then his mood changes, and he doesn't ever have enough information, and he's never really passionate about anything. So he flirts with all these groups, whether it be the truth community, whether it be Christians, evangelicals, and he says the things you want to hear, and then he just expects you, and oftentimes people will do this, you ignore all the other times he contradicts himself, right? And so the guy is reversing himself all the time, as is his administration. And they come in strong, like, this is it, we're sticking to it, and then they'll just change direction. And this is another example of that.
They announced two charges against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They also said that he had landed today back in the United States from El Salvador. We, of course, still have Kristen Holmes at the White House. Priscilla Alvarez also.
Why did they bring the guy back? But now they're like, all right, well, we got to make sure this guy is a criminal now. And so they're, whether he's actually a criminal or not, or, they're just making this stuff up. No one will ever really know for sure. But they brought him back, right? Why do you bring him back?
Also here in Washington, Elliot Williams, CNN.
What's this dude in this really strange haircut?
Legal analyst, former deputy assistant attorney general. Priscilla, let me start with you just because this has been something that you've been following so closely. Can you walk us through what we learned here? There was apparently a grand jury impaneled to investigate this indictment. Came down on May 21st, according to the attorney general. What's next?
Well, this was a traffic stop, this traffic stop in Tennessee that the Department of Homeland Security had released footage of while his court hearing was ongoing. But it was the most that we knew was that he had a brush with law enforcement and the footage of those police. And now, as you heard there from the attorney general, they had pursued that further. That ended with that grand jury indictment.
Okay, so let's go to Pam Bondi here. We're going to take it right from the horse's mouth.
This case has been hotly debated here in Washington. In your mind, does this resolve that issue in terms of his deportation? And should this be seen in any way as complying with the judge's order to return him to the U.S. and the Supreme Court ruling that the U.S. government should facilitate his return?
Well, there's a big difference between what the state of play was before the indictment and after the indictment. And so the reason why he is back and was returned was because there's an arrest warrant, which was presented to the government in El Salvador. So there's a big difference there.
So they had to get an arrest warrant in America for a guy who's not an American citizen, who they're going to eventually deport after they convict him, to bring him back here to go to trial and then go where? Who knows? Back to El Salvador. So they're admitting that they skipped a step. Like, it's just so fucked, right? Like the whole thing. They're just, it's a debacle, right?
As far as whether it makes the ongoing litigation in Maryland moot, I would think so, but we don't know that. He just landed today.
Jake, CBS. I just want to confirm what you said earlier, that you're intending to prosecute him and keep him in an American prison if he's found guilty, and then would remove him after his sentence is over.
Correct. Yes, he will be prosecuted in our country, sentenced in our country if convicted, and then returned after completion of his sentence.
So we're going to have American taxpayers that are going to have to pay for this guy's conviction only to deport him later on? Like, why are we doing that? Why are we fucking flipping the bill first? And this is going to be federal prison on top. What the fuck are they doing, right? They're all over the fucking place. Jesus Christ. So AI in terms of homeschooling. Well, let's look at this here.
This probably isn't what comes to mind when you think of an average school day. Kids breathing fire,
Find a spot for your foot.
climbing a rock wall, and even learning the art of grilling. But for students at the Alpha School in Austin, Texas, this is no field day. Here, K through 12th graders are proudly cutting classes, spending just 2 hours a day learning math, science, reading, and writing, all with the help of an AI tutor and without a single teacher.
So an AI tutor, having one-on-one attention really helps the student. Is when their parents help them with their homework and they have, tutors and things. It just helps people. And, I had dyslexia. This would have helped me. Although a big part of my education was going to the library and finding books on animals that I wanted to learn about and things, and looking through encyclopedias, and reading about it, as opposed to asking AI to show me a video or tell me about it or whatever, which wouldn't be as important to my development of my brain or my ability to educate myself. So, I have mixed feelings about it, but I see where this could be a good need. And also with homeschooling, if you can do it with computers, but the computer can't report back that the student isn't doing the work. The AI can say, like, if this isn't, quality work, the AI can be cognitive of a human interaction and be goals that are set that aren't achieved. And, there's lots of ways that this is certainly a beneficial tool. But like I said, when AI can do your thinking for you, then you're the ultimate sheep, because then you just ask AI to tell you what's up, and it just it gives you the answers. You have a question, it just asks it, and it gives you the answers. You don't have to think, right? You just have to, absorb what it's saying, and it's going to change the brain patterns and the way people think. Right. And they won't have to learn math because AI can do all that shit. Whether it's being an engineer or any of these other things.
Morning launch time. Mackenzie Price is the co-founder of Alpha School and its 2-hour learning program.
This is a school without teachers.
We have no teachers at our schools. Can you believe that?
The educators are a suite of AI-powered apps that gamify lessons, monitor progress, and with the help of eye tracking, keep tabs on students' attention span.
Who's teaching you?
I think the app is teaching me, but I'm also teaching myself.
All as adult guides, many of which have never been teachers, look on without interfering with their robot counterparts.
Are you comfortable having guides in the classroom that don't necessarily know the core curriculum?
It's okay that our guides aren't experts in physics or math or whatever they're doing. They are experts in their students.
It almost sounds like the guides here are told, you're here to lead the kids to AI.
Our guides are not allowed to teach. They are coaching students to become self-driven learners.
Price says the AI...
My kids were homeschooled, but my ex's children weren't. And one of them reported that the teacher had to explain one simple thing 12 times. So the majority of time, one of the things that school does is babysit kids. But if you homeschool kids and they do their work, promptly, it only takes a couple hours a day of schooling. Like the education part is only like 2 hours a day. Like if you are self-learning, you can, the amount of time that would take in a classroom with 25 other kids is like quadrupled or even more by misbehaving and explaining the things over and over again and just all of it, making sure everyone's up to speed and just all the stuff that goes on there. But if you're just sitting there with an AI bot, you can get in fact, you can get more work done in 2 hours than a kid will get done in a whole day of school, right? Part of it is the school is babysitting while the parents both work. Both parents work most of the time. And so, there's things here that would be a definite advantage. But, all the things that AI does for you that you don't do yourself, and then kids end up just relying on AI to do the work for them, which is already happening. And so, you'll see it, like everyone's like, we'll see what happens in 5 years. That's what all these people are saying. We'll see what happens in 5. It's going to take 5 years for people to integrate whatever the AI can do now, while the AI is growing exponentially. And, in 20 years, human life won't be the same. I don't think our civilization is going to be the same either way, because I think things are going to go down. But I think this is going to be some part of it. There'll be some part of civilization left after whatever happens. We'll see in terms of these apocalyptic things. But this AI thing is, it changes everything. Like it's a really big game changer.
My tutor personalizes lessons for each student, allowing them to learn class material in half the time, and according to data from Alpha, score in the 90th percentile on standardized tests in most grade levels.
This one's a little unusual.
It all comes as students nationwide grapple with AI's role, while some critics say it's too soon to know if the tech's having a positive effect in classrooms.
And what do we know about technology so far? What is the one thing we know? Younger people learn faster how to use it and know a lot more about it than older people. How many people ask their kids or their grandkids to set up their phone or set up their whatever, their new stuff on their TV or whatever it might be? They just understand how to use it, right? They know more on what to do with cell phones and laptops, and they just, in terms of social media, they have codes and things that they, the way they express themselves in ways older people don't understand. They are adapting to technology in a way that we're not. And, this is always the case. It's going to be the same with AI. They're going to be doing things with AI that we have no idea is even going on, right? They don't even tell their parents it's going to be this whole movement. And so all these things. So that's the first piece here.
So anyone who's been paying attention for the last few months has been seeing headlines like this, especially in education. The thesis has been students are going to be using ChatGPT and other forms of AI to cheat, do their assignments, they're not going to learn, and it's going to completely undermine education as we know it. Now, what I'm going to argue today is not only are there ways to mitigate all of that, if we put the right guardrails, we do the right things, we can mitigate it, but I think we're at the cusp of using AI
guardrails
for probably the biggest positive transformation that education has ever seen. And the way we're going to do that is by giving every student on the planet an artificially intelligent but amazing personal tutor. And we're going to give every teacher on the planet an amazing artificially intelligent teaching assistant. And just to appreciate how...
which is going to happen. And then kids don't even have to go to school then. What are they going to school for? Right? Like this can all be done at home. And so then you would have teachers who would, what happens when there's no school anymore? Like what happens when you have both parents working and the kids are being homeschooled by a AI tutor? What are they going to do the rest of their time? And so, this, we'll see a transformation. This is going to play out one way or another. But like I said, we don't know even how to use. The people who are experts in this don't know all the things that an AI can do and how it can do them. And various types of AI, they have these different, these things are, the AI is built from the ground up with certain parameters and certain, a certain orientation, and then it builds from there, like it self-develops from there. The other thing is here, let's get to this other piece here. So that video was from 2 years ago. So that's, I mean.
Morgan Stanley's out with a new note today calling Amazon an underappreciated Gen AI winner, citing its investments in automating $200 billion in logistics costs. Those dollars could have a major impact for Amazon's core e-commerce business. Our Kate Rooney's here with more for today's Tech Check. They have been active this week, Kate.
Yeah, Carl, some news this week, but from the beginning of the big tech AI race, if you think about it, Amazon CEO Andy Jassy has really argued that this technology is going to help their business internally. He's said at certain points they're not just competing here because it's cool and because it's the newest buzzword. We are seeing some more proof of that strategy as AI now emerges as a way to keep costs down within Amazon's giant e-commerce business. So in part, they're using robots in Silicon Valley. This is often known as physical AI. And then they're also streamlining that supply chain. Amazon does need this more than ever right now with the threat of tariffs and higher prices. The trade war has weighed on shares, negative on the year, really lingering in the middle of the Mag 7 lately. This week, Amazon rolled out some incremental AI updates. One new model was meant to speed up delivery. Another is to upgrade its fleet of robots, which in turn helps automate warehouses and keep costs.
The fleet of robots. So they have physical AI, which means that they have these drones and these robots and all these things. They want to eventually deliver all these things, these packages via drone. And when they do that, when they convert that, when there's drones dropping packages on your front door, that's going to, all these people are Amazon drivers. There's so many Amazon drivers. You see them on the road all the time. You can have multiple Amazon drivers going past your house or dropping off packages. And then you have all these robot things doing that, right? And imagine if we just looked up in the sky and all we saw was these little drone robots carrying bags of shit. How long before one of them drops someone on somebody and kills them?
Cost down. So the key here for investors is margins. Right now, Amazon's business has roughly 11% operating margins for e-commerce. It's about half of that, but had gone negative if you think back to COVID, and those margins have since recovered. Gene Munster, for example, over at Deepwater, thinks Amazon could get to 15% operating margins if all of these AI efforts end up paying off, especially in robotics. He compared it really to Tesla's strategy. Munster thinks a bulk of the value.
All these robotic things here, they should be jobs done by people.
Right now in AI for Amazon is in fulfillment center robots. I did speak to Amazon's robotics chief technologist.
You go to like an Amazon fulfillment center and there'll be no people. Like that,
To describe these AI updates as a way to improve the brains of these machines.
We call it physical AI because what we're doing is we're blending the mind with the body. We can create a more adaptive robot.
Yeah, we understood that. So, these are the things. Like they're just learning to implement these things. And then, it'll grow from there. And people will become obsolete, right? Like that's a big part of it because there's a lot of shitty jobs that people are, most people aren't suited for. I worked in I was in the prime of my, I was in my early 20s. And I had worked, one of my buddies with me and my two other friends, we all got jobs working for Road, whatever it was. It was like a shipping company in a warehouse. And it was during Christmas and they needed extra workers. And we'd go there in the middle of the night, we started at 11 o'clock at night. And we'd move freight around in a warehouse. And we were making crazy amount of money. Like it was like the most money we'd ever been paid for an hour because of the hours and all of it. And we weren't like sleeping because we were going to school or we were doing whatever else. But we did this for like 3 weeks, made a bunch of money. Roadway, maybe, I don't know. And so, there are those jobs, but the jobs suck. And so then I got a job at UPS, and it was loading boxes into trucks. And they paid a good hourly wage. I think I dropped out of college or something. And I went in there, and there's a little guy who's Hispanic. Guy's name was Felix. Like I remember, this was a big memory for me. And he was showing me how he did his job. And he was building these boxes like Tetris, I'm good at those kind of things, right? I'm a pattern recognition person. And he was building the boxes, but you had to read the zip codes on the box and then build it into, you had to figure out what was fragile or not. There was all these things you had to think about. And you had to build these, different shaped boxes and put them together to maximize the amount of boxes that were in the truck into these like little tiers that were like on pallets while reading the zip codes. And, you had to build them up high. So you're climbing up in the boxes and all these things. And the light in the trucks was, you could barely see. Like it was dim, like the light was flickering. I mean, these were these codexes, these boxes, these metal boxes that were going to go on a tractor trailer. And, so the guy, I watched him do it, and he was bouncing around, and like the speed of it, I'm like, oh, there's no way. And I got in there with a truck, and you had to memorize 5 zip codes. Like you had to remember all the 5 zip codes that were for that truck, and then forget about them and do it for the next one. And it was 10 o'clock at night, and I just walked out. Like I just left the place. I didn't tell anybody. I just this is horrible. There's no way I can do this job, right? And so those jobs are now done by, you can see from here, by these robots now with AI in them. And all these kind of jobs, and there's lots of jobs like this, can be done better by, because they can read the zip code, and they can calculate how to build the tiers and put the boxes in the truck, or whatever it might be, right? They're going to be able to do all these things as they automate this stuff. And so this is what I've been saying about robots for years, but now it's also AI. Like it's these two things: white collar jobs, mental jobs, and physical jobs, blue collar jobs. AI doing the white collar jobs, robots doing the physical jobs, and then the combination of the two. And it's already, it's already done. It's just a matter for them to figure out how to use all these things, these tools. So these are all videos YouTube recommended to me this morning. And they're coming in like hot and heavy. Like they want AI to be thought about and discussed for obvious reasons.
Front, AI is getting really good at programming. Gemini, both the agentic and just the LLM, has been incredible. So a lot of programmers are really worried that they will lose their jobs. How worried should they be? And how should they adjust so they can be thriving in this new world where more and more code is written by AI?
I think a few things. Looking at Google, we've given various stats around 30% of code now uses like AI generated suggestions or whatever it is.
So 30% of their code is now AI. And that's just because they haven't figured a way to do 100%, right? So the guy's going to say, well, people are going to be creating more, so there's going to be more need for engineers. No, there's not. The AI engineer is going to be far better because it's going to be able to deal with math better and all these things. And so, they know what's going to happen. Some of it they don't know but they know, they kind of know, and they're not going to tell you, guess what, you're fucked. Do your job for another 6 months and then train your replacement. You're literally training your replacement. And so as AI learns to assist you in your job, my wife and I were talking about this, and we learned what more AI can do. It'll be like, all right, well, let's let the AI do the whole job. What do we need you for, right? And so, it's going to be people who can be a liaison to the world of people and the world of AI. They'll have a role, but they'll need far less people to do all the things. And that's the point. I mean, it's already over. Like they're admitting to it. Like for him to say 30% that's being generated at Google with this Gemini stuff, and then it's just going to get more. It's like it's going to improve. What they have already now is going to improve, and they're going to be improving the AI on top of it. So, this is all, it's already happened, and they're not willing to admit it. Like they're already calculating, well, how long before we can lay off half of our staff or whatever it is. These jobs are going to be filled. What are we going to do with these people? How are we going to get rid of them, and, what kind of packages we're going to give them and things. And, imagine the mass of unemployment when there's 20% of the workforce is just let go, and those people all have the same skills. Like they all have the same skills that AI does. What are they going to do, right? Their whole education of, everything they've done for their college and all the training they've gone through is now obsolete. I mean, there's a lot of obsolescence here. It's going to be like fucked, and like this whole thing is going to transform society. You're going to have all these people who are, they're smart, educated, and there's no place for them. And they'll be like 25, 30 years old, some of them, right? And they'll be like, it used to be when they bring in young people for your old person's job, and they could hire a young person to do your work better because they understood more about technology and things. I mean, computers did this to so many people. And they're like, well, just hire a young person who's better suited to use all the technology that we now have. And you're being overpaid, and you're getting, they can hire a young person for a fourth of what you're making. And then that old person would go around and nobody wanted them, and all their experience that they built up in the years has now become useless because it's, this was like the Dunder Mifflin thing, that whole show, because of, like people who needs paper anymore, right? So they're all getting Dunder Mifflined. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of a weird day here. This will be the introduction to the 198th edition of the Journey series. So greetings, brothers and sisters. And so I want to talk a little bit more about AI technology. I did in my last Journey series video, and then in a number of the regular Pockets of Future videos. And the reason is I want to talk about the spiritual aspect of AI and some of the things about the Sajmark system. And, they have these whispers of the brighter world prophecies. This is a French woman who didn't speak English very well. She was somebody with severe physical disabilities and, basically a shut-in. And she was a great channeler, and there was these 20,000 channeled messages, the most ever done. And there was these ones about prophecies. And it's the end of this one. I'm going to read the whole message, but I wanted to focus on the end of it. Friday, December 29th, 2008 a.m. Nuclear power will ruin the world. This badly controlled power is demonic. One day man will be overwhelmed by its power. Upheavals that will change the world will have their origin in it. It has much wider implications than you could imagine, and which contribute to the destabilizing the balance of this planet. In this manner also, man plays with fire without actually being aware of detrimental consequences for humanity. A natural energy will replace all that is currently used and which are harmful to man. Human knowledge does not allow its use for the time being. These secrets will be revealed to men of goodwill who will look into an inspired scientific research. That energy will be non-polluting and not very expensive. Those with money power will not be content with it. Only the absolute necessity for the survival of the world will prevail. That time is not going to happen tomorrow. The earth will go through great changes before getting into that. These prophecies, and then he's saying this to the woman. She's dead already. She died in 2018. And she was freaked out by these prophecies. And so this is the part I want to focus on. These prophecies do not concern you. You are undergoing the damaging effects of this insidious pollution, which will lead the world to collapsing. But you can neither stop time nor modify the system in place. Then protect yourself as well as possible from these harmful effects and pray for your brothers of the future. I just want to read that again because, it's the whole reason for doing this. You are undergoing the damaging effects of this insidious pollution, which will lead the world to collapsing, but you can neither stop time nor modify the system in place. You can neither stop time nor modify the system in place. The Sajmark system is very practical. There's no superstitious beliefs. The meditation where you sit across from somebody and there's cleaning and transmission that happen on an etheric level is kind of a weird thing, right? There's no real reference point to it. It seems imaginary. Sometimes you have strong experiences. Some have strong experiences. Some people have no experiences at all, which makes it weirder. And, oftentimes the preceptor is not sure what's going on either, the person giving you the sitting. And it happens on an etheric level. And if you feel it, great. If you don't, it's weird, right? It's Well, that seemed like it was imaginary. I don't think anything happened there. And some of the sittings you feel nothing. Sometimes you feel restless. It's even, can be unpleasant to sit there, like you're just restless and, you want the thing to end. When the cleaning's happening, at least you're like, well, I guess can be explained in the cleaning, but it's still unpleasant, right? So that part of it is, there's no getting around that. But those of us who have done it for years and experienced the benefits knows that it works. Everybody else, especially new people coming in, it's a little weird. But other than that, there's no crazy beliefs. I mean, these prophecies and shit like that and the channeling thing, that's a little bit, out there for some people. But what I'm saying here is, even in these whispers messages, Babaji talks about where he said insidious pollution in this message. He talks about electromagnetic pollution. Often. There's probably 300-400 messages with that term in it. It talks about how Wi-Fi and the rest of these things are messing with our subtle bodies and our glands. Our glands are the guardians of the body. Our glands are usually near some sort of spiritual chakra, and that we're being fucked up by all this stuff that's happening, right? And so, there's that. Like she says, it's not good. Electromagnetic pollution, the energies that we're using, we all see the harmful effects of our kids being on screens, young people being addicted to the internet and all that stuff, right? We all know that there's a negative side to it. But he says, it's here, you got to use it. As long as it's here, you got to use it because, there's good things about it, certainly in terms of exchanging information, these other things, and, getting the word out and whatever it is. So, the idea that this stuff isn't great and there's a better way, and there's a lot of side effects and harmful nature of it, but it's what we have in our system. And, going back to this line, that's kind of part of it, right? Which you can neither stop time nor modify the system in place. You can neither stop time nor modify the system in place. And so, that's just the system. And like this is the view, whatever time period you live in. There's always going to be flaws in the system. There's always going to be things that are not of a divine nature. There are always going to be things that you have to deal with in life that are, kind of just devilish or demonic or whatever. It's just part of life on planet Earth until it isn't. And you have to make the best of it. And, you still can connect to God and have your spiritual path and live a good life. You just have to, figure out how to deal with all those things. And I would say that AI is a lot like that. My wife and I have been having discussions about it, and we're both starting to look into it a little bit more. And, it's just here. And whatever is going to happen with AI is going to happen. Because human beings don't stop themselves. They weren't going to stop themselves when they had the ability to split the atom. They weren't going to stop themselves when they developed electricity. I mean, we've all had things that we've done in our life where we lock in on something and we think we want something and we're working towards something, and nature is pushing back. And people are saying, I don't think you should do that. It might not even be a bad thing, but it's not for us. We're pursuing something. We're going after something that really isn't part of our destiny. And there's warnings and there's information coming back to us either through people or circumstances, and we keep on pushing forward, and it has negative effects because we didn't get it, right? We didn't let it go. And Americans, very specifically, there's this idea: never give up, never surrender, don't be a quitter, don't fail. You can never fail. Don't admit to failure. Don't fail. And so push forward and make sure it all happens. Force your will, impose your will. And sometimes it's about surrender and allowing, bowing before God and saying yes. Doing the work, as I said in my last video, you do the work and leave the results to God. And so, there's sometimes it's just, this is what it is, right? You got to make the best of it. And AI might be 80% negative, but you can use the 20% that's not, right? Or deal with the 20% that's, that has a positive effect or has, that has some value to you and other people. The system's going to change and people aren't going to like it, but it's the system that we now have. And how quickly it changes and how much suffering we have to endure I mean, suffering is always a blessing in one way, especially in a spiritual way of a spiritual life. And so, things are going to unfold, and there's no stopping it. Like, we've gone past the idea that the powers that be will listen to divine warnings, or stop what they're doing, and people will stop what they're doing, and we'll all be grateful for half of what we have, or a third of what we have, or a tenth of what we have, right? Because it's viewed as a loss. Like, we think we deserve what we have, and that anything less than that is unacceptable. And when it's going to be less, right? Your lifestyle is going to be less. It's across the board, and this is going to be a worldwide. It's a time of subtraction. We've been a time of addition, and it's led us to where we are now. And so as subtraction starts to unfold across the globe, certainly in wealthier countries like America, people react in any of the way they do, and that'll just go the way it does. And we'll see how it is for some people. They'll really enjoy the getting out of the rat race and the end of an unnatural lifestyle, as they have to people who go back to nature and embrace a more agrarian lifestyle, a more traditional lifestyle. I mean, that's not, I don't know, some people just be in FEMA camp and be whatever it is, right? But either way, there's this sense that God gives you what you need, right? And so instead of looking at it like it's Trump's fault, or the controller's fault, or Democrats' fault, or this group's fault or that group's fault, or getting mad and angry at the system collapsing and thinking it's unfair, this is part of a divine plan and contingencies for a system that's a wayward system that goes against the will of God. And the inevitable collapse is there, and we just have to go with the flow, right? I mean, that's the ultimate in understanding any of these things. Like, this is what we have, this is our lives, and whether this life suits us, whether we like it or not, whether we like the system, whether we like AI, whatever we like, any of these things, it's a part of it, and we just have to figure out how these things can help us. And AI, the one thing that it can do is save people time, and then we can use that free time for other things, a number of things that we can benefit from. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here.